Hello, my amazing Algebra Half students. This is Mrs. A, and I love math. And today we're doing lesson 61, which is the distance problem. And when we're talking about distance, we're talking about how far we travel. And we have a special formula. Distance is rate times time. Now, these are two rates. Now, when we're using this equation, we're going to use this rate. 60 miles in 1 hour is what you may be doing on the interstate. 60 miles per 1 hour, or 1 hour per 60 miles. Now, we can use both of those are equivalent rates. But if we are trying to get distance, we want to use it this way. We want to use distance. It has miles on top and hours on the bottom. If we use this rate and we multiply by the number of hours, the hours will cancel hours and we will get miles. So we're going to be talking about which way we're going to use these conversion units to be able to get the right answer out. And rate is just speed. So we're going to come back with a couple more boards of explanation, then we're going to do some problems. Okay, so this is just some more explanation here on this. The distance is the rate times the time. That's our formula. Okay, how far in 2 hours of 60 miles per hour? So this is the rate, this is the time, and we're looking for how far. What is the distance? So distance is how far, right? And we're going to use this rate because miles is on top. So we'll say 60 miles in 1 hour times, distance is rate times time, times 2 hours. Okay, so now guess what? The hours will cancel. Our units will cancel. So now we have 2 times 60 miles. So we're going to travel 120 miles would be the distance. Okay, so now we've switched things up a little bit. Our question is a little bit different. We're not looking for how far. We're looking for how long will it take to cover 300 miles at 60 miles an hour. Okay, so now that we're looking for how long, we're going to want to have the time on the top. So we're going to say 1 hour for every 60 miles. And we're going to multiply by 300 miles. And then our miles will cancel our miles. And we're left with 300 divided by 60 is 5 hours. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, so let's look at example 1. It says Helen could travel 40 miles per hour. How long would it take to travel 600 miles? So notice the question is how long. Now we could write 40 miles per hour, 40 miles per 1 hour, or we could write it 1 hour per 40 miles. But because our question is how long, we want hours on the top. They are two equivalent conversion units, but we want to use this one, not this one, because we want hours out. Okay, so now we're going to take this one that we're not going to use away. And so now she's traveling at this rate. We've got the rate the way we want it. How long would it take to travel 600 miles? We just multiply by 600 miles. We know to put the miles on the top because miles will then cancel the miles and we'll be left with hours. So here's our process. 600 divided by 40 hours. So 600 divided by 40, can't I cancel those, my zeros, and I get 60 divided by 4, or 15 hours. And 15 hours is the answer. Okay, so that is example number 1. Okay, on example 2, I'm going to do this 2 different ways. It says Harry could travel 350 miles in 7 hours. Okay, so first it says, what was his speed? Now remember, speed is the same thing as rate, which is distance over time is our rate. So we're going to take 350 miles per 7 hours. And we're going to simplify this, and 350 divided by 7, we know that 35 divided by 7 is 5, so 350 divided by 7 is 50. So he is going 50 miles per hour. Okay, now we're going to do this one way, and then we're going to turn around and do it the other way that I just showed you on the first one. I want you to be able to do it both ways. Okay, so we're going to use his rate, which is his speed, which is 50 miles per hour. And then we're going to say, how long will it take him to go 800 miles? And we're going to use this equation. So rate is the speed we just found. So we have 50 miles per hour. Okay, 50 miles per hour times the time, which is what I'm trying to find out. I don't know my time, so I'm just going to leave a T for my time, equals the distance I want to travel, which is 800. Okay, so now if I want to get T by itself, don't I need to get rid of the 50? Now, we don't really need this miles per hour here right now. I just wanted to show you. Let's do this. Miles per hour. We'll show you, and then we'll get rid of it. Isn't the T going to be in hours? So we're going to have T hours, and then hours will cancel hours, and we'll be left with miles, which is what this is. So your units should always work for you. But right now we don't really need to see those. So we know that time is in hours and that rate is in miles per hour. So now to get rid of the 50, can I just divide both sides by 50? Okay, I don't have much room to divide by 50, so I'm just going to make a little line, 50. And then over here, divide by 50. Okay, so now I have time on the left. So time equals, and then over here, my zeros cancel, and 80 divided by 50 is going to go 148, 18 times, I think. Let's check it. 8 divided by 5 is 1, 30, 16 times. I knew that. Okay, so time is 16 hours. So what did we do? We took this equation. Rate, which is 50, times time, which we didn't know at the time, is distance. So then we divided both sides by 50, and we got that the T is equal to, we can put a little dot here if that's confusing, because we've been using this, a dot for times. So then we divide by 50, and we get 16. That's one way to do it. So now I'm going to do the same problem a different way. I left the old answer there so we could compare and make sure we got the same thing both ways. Now remember, when we divided, we had 50 miles per hour, and the other rate we can use is 1 hour per 50 miles. Now we're doing this one a different way, but we're going to get the same answer. We're going to use the unit method, okay? So when we're using the unit method, we're going to make our units cancel and match so that we get what we want out. So we're using 800 miles, and don't we want time? How long is the question? So we want hours out, don't we? So we want hours out. So I'll put a little like that. And if we want hours out, we want to use this one that has hours on the top, not this one that has hours on the bottom. So we're going to use this one as our rate. So 1 hour, 50 miles. And then we're just going to multiply by the distance we want to go, which is 800 miles. And look what happens. My miles on the top cancels my miles on the bottom and leaves me with hours, which is what I want. So now what do I end up with? 800 on the top divided by 50. Wasn't that what we had before? 800 divided by 50 hours. And 800 divided by 50 is 80 divided by 5. And 80 divided by 5 is 16, which we had the first time. Isn't that cool? Math is so cool. It's very systematic and objective. Okay, so here is your practice problem. So I want you to copy it down and then pause your video. I'm going to read it to you. Mildred traveled the first 120 miles in 3 hours. What was her speed? How long would it take her to travel 400 miles at the same speed? So we start by taking 120 miles over 3 hours, so 120 miles per 3 hours. So we can simplify that. 120 divided by 3 is 40 miles per hour. Now, miles per hour is often written MPH for short. Miles per hour, to make it a little bit easier, okay? So her speed or rate is 40 miles per hour. So we answered the first part. So now we have to take the 40 miles per hour and see how long would it take her to travel 400 miles. Well, what do you think? This one is pretty simple, isn't it? But we're going to do it two ways. We're going to do it with our formula. So rate times time is distance. We're going to do it that way first, and then we're going to do it using our units. Okay, our rate is 40 times the time, which we don't know, in the distance is 400 miles. So if I need to get t by itself, don't I divide both sides by 40? And I get t is 400 divided by 40, which is just 10, isn't it? 40 divided by 4 is 10. So it's going to take 10 hours to make the 400 miles at the 40 miles per hour. So now we're going to do the same problem using our unit conversions. Okay, so when we're using our unit conversions, we don't really have to worry with the formula so much because we can use 40 miles per hour or 1 hour per 40 miles. Okay, so if we have our rate and we have our distance, we're looking for time. So we want time out. Since we want time to come out of the equation, we want our hours on the top. Okay, so we're going to use this one. We're not going to use this one because we're going to do it using our unit conversions. So we're going to say 1 hour per 40 miles. And then I just multiply by the 400 miles. And I'll just put that over 1. The miles cancels the miles, and I'm left with hours, which is time. So I know I did it correctly. 400 on the top divided by 40 on the bottom, again, is 10. And the units are right there, aren't they? 10 hours. And we did it 2 ways and got 10 hours both ways. And we are done with that lesson. So that's lesson 61, all done. Lots about rates and times and distance. And this is Mrs. A, and may God bless your day.